Father Michael was a quiet man with gentle eyes and a calm voice. For more than 20 years, he had served the small town of Willow Creek as the local parish priest. His church, St. Peter's, was not large or fancy, but it had a charm that drew people from all over the town. The wooden pews creaked when people sat. The stained glass windows cast colors across the floor in the morning light, and the old organ played soft notes that carried throughout the hall. People often said the church had a warm soul, and many came not only for the services but for the peace that seemed to live inside its walls. Father Michael had a routine he followed every day. He would rise before dawn, kneel in prayer, and prepare for the day ahead. On Sundays, he wore his black cassock and a silver cross necklace that had been a gift from his late mentor. He never removed it, not even when washing his hands or working around the church. To him, it was more than jewelry. It carried memories, guidance, and a sense of faith that connected him to someone he had admired and trusted. On this particular Sunday, the air was crisp and the autumn leaves danced along the cobblestone streets outside. The townspeople began arriving early, filling the pews with quiet chatter and soft laughter. Among the crowd was Officer Daniels, the local police officer, bringing along Rex, his trained canine partner. Rex was a strong German shepherd with keen senses and a loyalty that was unmatched. He was trained for many tasks, detecting drugs, finding missing people, and sensing danger. But even with all his training, Rex had his own personality. He was intelligent, sensitive, and sometimes a little stubborn. As Father Michael stepped into the aisle, greeting his parishioners with a warm smile, Rex's ears perked up. The dog's eyes locked onto Father Michael's chest where the cross hung. Rex tilted his head, sniffed, and then let out a low whine. Officer Daniels noticed immediately. He had worked with Rex for years, and when Rex acted like this, it usually meant something unusual. The service began as usual. Father Michael spoke softly about kindness, faith, and community. The congregation listened attentively, hands folded, heads bowed, hearts open. But every few minutes, Rex would shift, sniffing the air around the priest, whining quietly and pawing at the floor. Some of the townspeople began to notice her. "Why is the dog acting that way?" whispered Mrs. Patterson to the person next to her. She was an older woman with silver hair and bright eyes that had seen many winters. "It must be restless," came the reply. "He's just a dog. Let him be." But Rex was not restless. He was focused. His nose twitched, his ears moved forward, and his eyes never left the cross. He growled softly under his breath, not in anger, but as a signal that something was there. Officer Daniels kept a firm grip on his leash, trying to calm him, but the dog's behavior became more pronounced. Father Michael noticed Rex, too. He frowned slightly, unsure why a police dog would be so fixated on his necklace. He had seen Rex in action before, chasing suspects or finding lost children, but this was different. Rex was not reacting to anything dangerous or obvious. He was focused solely on the cross that hung around the priest's neck. The congregation started to shift in their seats, whispering among themselves. The atmosphere, once calm and peaceful, began to carry a sense of curiosity. Some smiled nervously, while others frowned. The service continued, but the attention of the people was now divided between the words of Father Michael and the strange behavior of the dog. Officer Daniels finally spoke up, lowering his voice so that only Father Michael could hear. "Father, Rex has never acted like this before. He is usually calm during church. I think he senses something unusual." Father Michael nodded slowly, keeping his voice steady. "I am not sure what you mean, officer. He is just a dog, and the cross is nothing dangerous." Rex let out another soft whine and stepped closer to Father Michael. The dog's paw tapped the floor repeatedly, a rhythm that matched his growing insistence. The congregation grew quiet, sensing that something important was happening, though no one could say what. Children peeked around the pews, curious and whispering to their parents about the strange dog. Father Michael continued the sermon, speaking about forgiveness and patience. He tried to ignore Rex, but the dog was relentless. Each time the priest raised his hands, Rex's gaze followed the cross. When the priest knelt to bless the congregation, Rex stepped forward, whining, pawing at the floor, and even sniffing at the hem of Father Michael's cassock. A few of the older members of the congregation began to murmur among themselves. "Has anyone seen a dog act like this before?" asked Mr. Thompson, a farmer with a kind face but skeptical eyes. "No, never," said Mrs. Morales, shaking her head. "It's almost as if he recognizes something." The whispers grew, and the church, normally filled with harmony, now held a quiet tension. People were not scared, but they were intrigued. What could a dog sense that humans could not? Father Michael, feeling a mix of concern and curiosity, decided to finish the service more quickly than usual. He prayed silently, asking for guidance and protection for his congregation and for Rex. After the final hymn, the congregation began to leave slowly, casting glances at Rex and the priest. Officer Daniels knelt beside his dog. "Rex, what is it, boy?" he asked softly. Rex sniffed the air one last time, looking straight at the silver cross. Then he sat, his tail low, his eyes never leaving the necklace. Father Michael, now alone with Officer Daniels and Rex, finally spoke. "I have had this cross for many years. It belonged to my mentor. I have never noticed anything unusual about it." Officer Daniels nodded. "I understand, Father. But Rex has a very strong sense of things that are hidden. If he is reacting like this, there must be a reason. We may not see it, but he does." Father Michael looked down at the cross, feeling its smooth surface between his fingers. He had never thought about it in this way. It had always been a symbol of faith, comfort, and memory. Now, with Rex staring so intently, it felt as though the cross held a secret that only the dog could sense. The church emptied completely, leaving just the three of them in the silent hall. The sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows, casting colorful patterns across the floor. Rex stood, walked slowly to Father Michael, and sniffed closer. The priest's heart pounded. He had never experienced anything like this before. A sense of mystery hung in the air, and he realized that this day would not be like any other. Outside, the wind moved the leaves along the streets, whispering in the quiet town. Inside St. Peter's, the faithful remained behind in their thoughts, wondering what the dog had sensed. Father Michael knelt once again in front of the altar, holding the cross tightly, and whispered a prayer for understanding. Rex sat beside him, alert, loyal, and focused. The bond between man and dog, faith and instinct, had never felt stronger. As the sun set that evening, painting the sky in warm oranges and purples, the church remained still. The townspeople had gone home, but the memory of the day, the dog's insistence, the priest's calm, and the cross that held a mystery, lingered in the air. Father Michael knew that something important had begun, something that would soon reveal itself, and he felt both anxious and ready. Rex, as always, remained vigilant. The K9 had never been wrong before, and the priest trusted him completely. Whatever secret the cross held, the dog had sensed it first, and as Father Michael closed his eyes in prayer, he realized that faith sometimes came in many forms, even in the nose of a loyal police dog. After that strange Sunday, the small town of Willow Creek could not stop talking about Rex, the police dog, and his strange behavior in St. Peter's Church. Every time Officer Daniels and Rex passed by the church or walked near the town square, people would stop them. They whispered, asked questions, and tried to guess what had made the dog so fixated on Father Michael's cross. The priest himself tried to remain calm, but he could not ignore the weight of curiosity that seemed to grow around him. Father Michael had always been a private man. He had spent decades serving his parish quietly, offering guidance, comfort, and support to the people of the town. He was known for his soft-spoken words, his patience with children, and his willingness to listen to anyone in need. But now, for the first time, he felt a shadow of worry. A police dog, trained to sense danger and unusual substances, had behaved oddly, sniffing at something he had never considered suspicious. It was unnerving. On Monday morning, Father Michael arrived at the church early, hoping to have a quiet hour of prayer before the day began. The sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows, painting the floor with colored patches. Everything seemed normal at first, but when he knelt by the altar, he could not stop thinking about Rex's behavior. He held the cross in his hands, feeling its weight and smooth edges. He had worn it for years without question, but now it seemed different. Something about it felt important in a way he could not explain. As he reflected, Officer Daniels arrived with Rex. The dog's ears perked up the moment he entered the church. His eyes immediately focused on the cross. He sniffed the air and moved closer to the priest, letting out a low whine. Father Michael took a deep breath and tried to remain calm. "Rex, what is it that you smell?" he whispered, though he knew the dog could not answer with words. Officer Daniels knelt beside Rex, watching carefully. "He's never acted like this before," he said quietly. "He can sense things humans cannot. If Rex is focused on the cross, we should pay attention." Father Michael nodded, though his stomach tightened with nervousness. He had always trusted God's guidance, but now he wondered if there was another kind of guidance at work, one that came through the instincts of a loyal dog. Over the next few days, the priest noticed a change in the congregation. People began looking at him differently. Some offered smiles that carried curiosity, while others asked indirect questions. "Father, is everything all right?" Mrs. Patterson asked one morning after the morning mass. Her hands were folded politely, but her eyes were full of wonder. "Yes, Mrs. Patterson, everything is fine, Father Michael replied softly, but he could sense the worry and curiosity in her voice and in many others. Children, too, seemed fascinated. During Sunday school, a few of the older kids whispered about the dog and the cross, imagining that there was a secret hidden within it. They giggled quietly, but some of them looked at the priest with wide eyes as though he held a magical treasure. Father Michael decided that he could not ignore Rex's behavior any longer. He knew that Officer Daniels trusted his dog's instincts implicitly, and he realized that the dog might be trying to tell him something important. He invited Officer Daniels to meet with him after one evening service. As the congregation left, the church grew quiet again. The air smelled faintly of old wood and candle wax. Father Michael led Officer Daniels and Rex into the center of the church. Rex immediately walked to the priest, sniffing carefully at the cross and nudging it lightly with his nose. "I have worn this cross for so many years," Father Michael said softly. "It was a gift from my mentor. I never thought it held anything unusual." Officer Daniels nodded. "I understand, Father, but Rex has never reacted like this in his life." Something about the cross caught his attention. It could be the material, a scent, or something hidden inside. "I think it's worth investigating." The priest hesitated. The cross had always been sacred to him. It represented faith, guidance, and the memory of someone he loved and respected. He worried about violating that trust, but he could not ignore the dog's persistent behavior. After a few moments of thought, he made a decision. "All right, Rex, you have my attention," he said. He carefully removed the cross from his neck, holding it in both hands. The moment the cross left Father Michael's neck, Rex stepped back slightly, sitting calmly on the floor. The dog's eyes never left the cross, but he no longer whined or pawed at it. Officer Daniels examined the necklace closely. It was small, made of polished silver, and appeared to be a simple piece of jewelry. But there was something subtle, a tiny hinge on the back that suggested the cross could open. Father Michael looked at Officer Daniels in surprise. "I never noticed that before," he said softly. "My mentor never mentioned anything like this. It was just a gift to keep me close to him, a reminder of his guidance." "Sometimes," Officer Daniels said, "things that seem ordinary can hold secrets. Rex is trained to notice unusual scents, substances, or hidden items. He must have sensed something inside this cross that we cannot see yet." The priest felt a mix of curiosity and nervousness. What could be inside a cross he had worn for so many years without question? He carefully opened the tiny hinge. Inside he found a small rolled-up piece of paper, old and fragile, browned with age. He unrolled it gently, careful not to tear it. As he read, his eyes widened. The paper was not a threat, nor did it contain anything dangerous. Instead, it held a handwritten note from his late mentor, written decades ago. It was a message about faith, hope, and forgiveness. It spoke of the importance of guiding others with kindness, understanding, and patience. It was as if the mentor had left a personal letter, hidden in the cross, for the priest to discover when he most needed guidance. Father Michael felt a wave of emotion. He had always known that the cross was special, but he had never imagined it carried such a personal message. Rex sat patiently at his side, as if waiting for him to understand. Officer Daniels smiled quietly, knowing that the dog's instincts had been correct. Word of Rex's discovery began to spread through the town. People came to the church not only to attend services, but also to see the cross and learn about the message it contained. Father Michael shared the story gently, explaining how Rex had drawn attention to something that had been hidden for years. The congregation felt a sense of awe. They were inspired not only by the priest's devotion, but also by the loyalty and intelligence of the police dog. Children asked questions excitedly. Did Rex really find it? Did the dog know it was important? They asked, their eyes wide with wonder. Yes, Father Michael replied with a smile. Sometimes even animals can see what humans cannot. Rex reminded us that guidance can come in many forms. Faith is not only in words or rituals, it can be in small, unexpected ways too. Over the next weeks, Father Michael, Officer Daniels, and Rex developed a deeper bond. The dog was no longer just a trained partner for police work. He became a quiet guardian of the church, a companion who reminded everyone that sometimes the smallest actions reveal the greatest truths. People in the town began to notice subtle changes in the atmosphere of St. Peter's. Services felt warmer, more attentive. Conversations between parishioners carried more patience and kindness. And always Rex sat at the front, alert, calm, and watchful. Father Michael never wore the cross in the same way again. He understood now that it carried more than just faith. It held history, wisdom, and a connection to someone who had cared deeply for him. Every time he saw Rex looking at it, he remembered the lesson of attention, patience, and trust. In Willow Creek, the story of the police dog, the priest, and the mysterious cross spread quietly, inspiring everyone who heard it. People began to reflect on their own lives, thinking about the small details they overlooked, the hidden guidance they ignored, and the loyalty that existed in unexpected forms. Rex became a local hero in his own way, not for chasing criminals or finding missing children, but for helping a community rediscover wonder, faith, and respect for the little things that carried deep meaning. Father Michael often knelt alone in the empty church, holding the cross in his hands, feeling gratitude not only for his mentor, but also for the dog who had opened his eyes. He realized that faith, love, and loyalty could come in surprising ways, sometimes in the form of a four-legged friend who refused to ignore what was truly important. The small town of Willow Creek continued its daily life, but Sundays were never quite the same. People came to the church with more curiosity and attention. They watched Rex carefully. They listened to Father Michael with more focus, and they appreciated the quiet mysteries that life sometimes presented. The dog's instincts had shown them that even in ordinary places, extraordinary stories could unfold. Days passed since Rex had drawn attention to Father Michael's cross, and the story had spread quietly throughout Willow Creek. People whispered about the priest, the dog, and the mysterious discovery inside the silver cross. Some said it was a miracle, while others thought it was simply coincidence. But for Father Michael, the mystery had only begun. One Tuesday morning, Father Michael arrived at the church earlier than usual. The sun had not fully risen, and a soft orange glow touched the stained glass windows. The town was still quiet, and the crisp autumn air filled the small church with the faint smell of old wood and candle wax. Father Michael carried the cross carefully in his hands. He had slept poorly, thinking about the secret message his mentor had hidden. There was something in those words, something that felt incomplete, as if there was more to discover. As he knelt in prayer, he heard the familiar sound of paws clicking against the stone floor. Rex was already there, sitting patiently at the entrance, his ears perked and eyes fixed on the priest. Officer Daniels followed close behind. "Morning, Father," he said quietly. "Rex insisted we come early today. He seems very focused again." Father Michael frowned slightly. "Focused on what?" he asked softly. Though he already feared, he knew the answer. Rex's instincts had proven accurate before, and the dog had never been wrong. For the next hour, Father Michael led his morning service for a small group of early arrivals. The congregation was calm, and the service began in its usual peaceful manner. But Rex's behavior did not change. He kept glancing at the cross, sniffing the air, and stepping closer to the priest every few minutes. Officer Daniels watched carefully, holding the leash lightly but keeping a close eye on the dog. Finally, as the last hymn ended, Father Michael stood quietly near the altar. He felt a strong sense that something was about to happen. "Rex," he said, "if there is more to this cross, we must see it clearly. I will follow your guidance." The dog let out a soft whine, stepped closer, and pawed lightly at Father Michael's hands, where the cross rested. Taking a deep breath, the priest opened the hidden compartment of the cross again. Inside was another small rolled-up paper. Father Michael's heart raced. He had not expected this. He carefully unrolled the paper, revealing faint handwriting older than the first note, written in tiny, precise letters. The words were a message from his mentor, but this time it was more personal, almost urgent. The note spoke about hidden truths in the town, secrets that had been kept for years to protect certain people. It mentioned kindness, forgiveness, and the courage to face difficult realities. The mentor's handwriting trembled slightly on the edges of the paper, as if he had felt the weight of what he was writing. Father Michael's eyes widened as he read. It was clear that his mentor had wanted him to know these things one day, but only when he was ready. Rex remained close, sensing the priest's emotional state. The dog nudged the cross lightly, as if encouraging Father Michael to continue reading. Officer Daniels watched quietly, respecting the moment. He had seen many things with Rex, but this was different. This was not a search for criminals or evidence. It was a discovery of something that had been hidden for decades, something that connected faith, memory, and the truth of a small town. Father Michael read the note aloud softly so that only Officer Daniels could hear. The words described people who had quietly helped the community, some in secret, others whose names had been forgotten. It spoke of courage in everyday life, acts of kindness that went unseen, and the importance of acknowledging these deeds. The note ended with a message of hope, that the future of Willow Creek depended on understanding the past, embracing truth and supporting one another. As Father Michael finished reading, he felt a mixture of awe and responsibility. The cross had revealed more than a message. It had revealed a mission. He realized that he had been entrusted not only with faith, but also with the care of the town's hidden stories. Rex barked softly, breaking the silence as if to say, "You understand now." Officer Daniels smiled, nodding in agreement. Word of this second discovery began to circulate quietly. People came to St. Peter's Church not only to attend Mass but to see the cross and hear about Rex and the hidden messages. The congregation grew more attentive during services, not because of fear or suspicion, but out of respect for the lessons the priest had learned and the dog had revealed. Children whispered excitedly, asking questions about Rex's abilities and the secret notes. Adults reflected on their own lives, thinking about the acts of kindness they had witnessed or been part of but had never acknowledged. One afternoon, Father Michael decided to share a small part of the story with the congregation. He spoke about Rex, the police dog, and his faithful instincts. He described how the dog had led him to the hidden messages, and how each note carried wisdom, courage, and guidance. The church was quiet, every ear attentive, every eye focused. People were moved by the story. They could see the devotion of the priest, the loyalty of the dog, and the care with which the mentor had left these messages. After the service, several members of the congregation approached Father Michael. "It is amazing," said Mrs. Morales, her eyes shining. "I never thought a dog could teach us so much." "Faith comes in many forms," Father Michael replied gently. "Sometimes it is in words, sometimes in deeds, and sometimes in the instincts of those we trust." Rex reminded us that guidance can appear in the most unexpected ways. Officer Daniels patted Rex's head. "He's a good dog," he said proudly. "He doesn't just find things. He notices what matters. Today, he helped all of us see what we might have missed." The days continued, and Father Michael began to understand the depth of his mentor's messages. The cross was no longer just a symbol of faith. It was a bridge to the past, a reminder of courage and a guide for the future. He kept the notes carefully, reading them each day, letting their wisdom shape his sermons and his approach to the community. Meanwhile, Rex became more than just a police dog in Willow Creek. He was a guardian, a companion, and a teacher. People came to know that the dog's instincts were extraordinary, and they respected him not only for his service, but for his role in revealing the town's hidden stories. Children adored him, following him gently as he walked with Officer Daniels. Adults smiled whenever they saw him, remembering how a loyal dog had helped uncover lessons that had been hidden for decades. Father Michael often reflected on the chain of events. He realized that the discovery of the cross had changed more than just him. It had changed the entire community. People began to notice small acts of kindness in their neighbors, offer forgiveness where there had been misunderstanding, and appreciate the quiet heroes who had shaped their town in secret. The lesson was clear. Sometimes the smallest details and the quietest actions held the greatest significance. One evening, as the sun set and the church grew dim, Father Michael knelt in front of the altar with the cross in his hands. Rex sat beside him, alert but calm. Officer Daniels watched from the doorway, giving them space. The priest whispered a prayer, thanking God for his mentor, for the loyal dog, and for the wisdom that had been passed down through the hidden notes. He realized that life often had unseen layers, and that understanding and compassion were keys to unlocking them. From that day forward, Sundays at St. Peter's Church were filled with more than faith alone. They were filled with curiosity, attention, and a sense of wonder. The townspeople understood that there were mysteries in life waiting to be discovered, and sometimes, guidance came in forms they least expected: a faithful dog, a hidden note, and a cross worn close to the heart. Rex's role was never forgotten. He continued to accompany Officer Daniels on his duties, but every Sunday he returned to the church, sitting patiently, always attentive to Father Michael. He reminded the priest and the congregation that care, loyalty, and understanding were essential, and that even the simplest objects, a cross, a note, a dog's nose, could reveal truths that changed lives forever. Father Michael felt a new sense of purpose. He knew the messages hidden in the cross were not just for him. They were for the town, for the people who would listen, and for the generations who would follow. With Rex by his side, he was ready to continue guiding his congregation, helping them see beyond what was obvious and appreciate the hidden wisdom that life sometimes offered. Willow Creek remained a quiet town, but the story of the cross, the dog, and the hidden messages added a new layer of depth to its everyday life. People remembered the days when Rex had insisted on drawing attention to the cross, and they realized that faith and insight could come from the most unexpected places. And in the heart of St. Peter's Church, Father Michael, Officer Daniels, and Rex continued their quiet, extraordinary partnership, discovering together the power of attention, loyalty, and the courage to uncover what was hidden. The week after Father Michael and Rex had uncovered the second note, the small town of Willow Creek buzzed with quiet curiosity. The story of the priest, the dog, and the mysterious cross had spread slowly, from one neighbor to another. People whispered about the dog's keen instincts and the messages hidden by the priest's mentor. Children asked questions eagerly at school, while adults shared their own thoughts about kindness, courage, and hidden acts of good in the town. But for Father Michael, the matter was far from resolved. He had spent hours examining the cross, the notes, and the smallest details, trying to understand the full meaning of the messages. Each note revealed lessons of wisdom and compassion, but they also hinted at a deeper secret, one that had been left for him to uncover when the time was right. Every time he held the cross, he felt a strange mix of peace and tension. Something about the cross was still waiting to reveal itself. One Sunday morning, Father Michael arrived at the church before dawn. The air was cool and crisp, and the first rays of sunlight were just touching the tops of the old wooden pews. Rex was already there, sitting patiently by the doorway, alert and focused. Officer Daniels followed a few steps behind, giving the dog space to move freely. The congregation began to arrive, as they did every Sunday, but there was an unusual sense of anticipation in the air. People spoke quietly, casting glances at the priest and Rex, wondering if today would bring another revelation. Father Michael stepped into the aisle, greeting his parishioners with a warm smile, but inside he felt a quiet nervousness. He could sense that Rex was more focused than usual. The dog's eyes stayed fixed on the cross that hung around the priest's neck. As the service began, the usual hymns and prayers filled the air. Father Michael spoke softly about faith, forgiveness, and the importance of small acts of kindness. But even as he spoke, Rex remained unusually restless. He whined softly, paced a few steps, and then returned to the priest, sniffing at the cross. Officer Daniels watched closely, understanding that this behavior meant something important. The moment came when Father Michael finished his sermon and knelt in front of the altar to bless the congregation. Rex stepped forward, nudging the priest gently with his nose, pawing lightly at the floor. The congregation grew quiet, sensing the dog's insistence. The children watched with wide eyes, and the adults whispered in soft tones, curious but respectful. Father Michael took a deep breath and did something he had not done before. With steady hands, he removed the cross from around his neck. The church fell completely silent. Even the wind outside seemed to pause, and the sunlight through the stained glass windows cast colorful patterns across the floor. Rex sat calmly, eyes locked on the cross as if to say, "This is it." The priest held the cross carefully, examining the tiny hinge he had noticed earlier. Inside he found another piece of paper, older and more fragile than the previous two. His hands trembled slightly as he unrolled it. The writing was faint but legible. It contained a message from his mentor, written many years ago. This note was different from the others. It was not just about faith, kindness, or courage. It spoke of a hidden history, a story of the town itself and secrets that had been carefully protected to shield people from harm. The words revealed acts of heroism that had been forgotten. Names of townspeople who had helped others in secret, who had shown courage when no one was watching. The note spoke of generosity, sacrifice, and love that had never been recognized publicly. It also mentioned challenges that had been faced and quietly overcome, leaving the town stronger and closer as a community. Father Michael's eyes widened as he realized that the cross contained more than guidance. It was a time capsule of history and a reminder of the good that existed quietly in the world. Rex whined softly and nudged the cross toward Father Michael again, urging him to continue reading. Officer Daniels stepped closer, his expression a mix of respect and amazement. He had worked with Rex for years, but he had never seen the dog guide anyone to such a personal, meaningful discovery. Father Michael raised his voice slightly, reading the message aloud so the congregation could hear. The words described ordinary people performing extraordinary acts. A farmer who had secretly supported a struggling family, a teacher who had given extra lessons to children who needed help, a shopkeeper who had provided food for neighbors without asking for thanks. The church listened, captivated by the stories. They recognized the names, remembered the deeds, and felt pride in their community. As the priest finished reading, a hush settled over the congregation. The church was silent, filled with awe and reflection. Father Michael held the cross close, understanding that this revelation was more than history. It was a call to live with greater awareness, kindness, and courage. Rex barked softly, breaking the quiet. It was a gentle sound, almost like a signal, and the congregation smiled. The dog had led them to a truth they might never have noticed otherwise. Children clapped softly, adults nodded, and the air was filled with a quiet energy of understanding and connection. After the service, people approached Father Michael with tears in their eyes and words of gratitude. "I never knew my grandfather had done that," said Mrs. Morales, holding her hand to her chest. "He always helped quietly, and now I see why he did it." "It is incredible," said Mr. Thompson, the farmer. "A simple cross, a loyal dog, and a priest who listened carefully. Who would have thought we would learn so much today?" Father Michael smiled. Faith is often in the small things. Sometimes it is in the words of a mentor, sometimes in the actions of those around us, and sometimes in the instincts of a loyal friend. He gestured to Rex, who wagged his tail gently, sitting patiently as the congregation admired him. Over the following weeks, Father Michael continued to explore the messages in the cross. He spoke about the stories during sermons, highlighting the importance of quiet heroism, generosity, and community. The town responded with renewed attention to each other. People began helping neighbors more actively, recognizing kindness that had gone unnoticed before, and sharing stories of courage that inspired others. Rex became a symbol of loyalty, intelligence, and unexpected guidance. Children loved him and followed him with curiosity and affection. Adults admired him for his instincts, and even visitors to the church were drawn to the story of the cross and the dog who revealed its secrets. Officer Daniels continued to support Father Michael and Rex, proud that his partner had played a role in uniting the town and revealing hidden truths. One evening, Father Michael knelt before the altar, holding the cross carefully. The church was quiet, the last rays of sunlight spilling through the stained glass windows. He whispered a prayer of thanks for his mentor, for Rex, and for the courage to listen and discover the hidden wisdom that had been entrusted to him. Rex sat beside him, calm and loyal, as if understanding the importance of the moment. The story of the cross and the dog spread quietly beyond the town. People from nearby areas visited St. Peter's Church, not only for worship but to see the cross and learn about the lessons hidden within it. The town of Willow Creek, once quiet and ordinary, had become a place of inspiration, curiosity, and reflection. The ordinary objects, the unnoticed deeds, and the loyal instincts of a dog had changed everything. Father Michael realized that the discovery was not just about the past. It was a guide for the present and the future. The cross, the notes, and Rex's guidance reminded him and the congregation that life often held secrets waiting to be noticed, that even small actions carried great meaning, and that loyalty, kindness, and faith could reveal extraordinary truths. By the end of Part 4, the town had been forever changed. The congregation of St. Peter's Church understood the importance of paying attention, of valuing quiet heroism, and of respecting the wisdom hidden in unexpected places. Father Michael, with Rex and Officer Daniels by his side, continued to guide his community, inspired by the lessons that had come to light, and through it all, the cross remained close to his heart, a symbol of faith, courage, and the extraordinary story that had unfolded because a loyal dog had refused to ignore what truly mattered. After the remarkable discovery of the hidden notes in Father Michael's cross, Willow Creek was never quite the same. The town had been quietly transformed by the story of the loyal police dog, the devoted priest, and the wisdom hidden for decades by a mentor who had long passed. Each Sunday, the church filled with anticipation. People were curious not just about the service, but about the lessons hidden in everyday life, the small acts of kindness, the quiet bravery, and the unseen sacrifices that shaped their community. Father Michael arrived early as usual, the silver cross resting gently in his hands. Rex, as always, was there first, sitting patiently by the entrance with Officer Daniels standing behind him. The morning sunlight spilled through the stained glass windows, casting bright colors across the wooden floor. Father Michael felt a sense of calm and purpose. The town had embraced the lessons hidden in the cross, but there was still work to do. As the congregation arrived, children ran quietly to greet Rex, patting his head and whispering thanks for his loyalty. Adults smiled, recalling the story of how the dog had drawn attention to the cross and revealed the hidden messages. The air was alive with quiet excitement and reflection. Today felt different, as if something important was about to happen, a final chapter in the story that had begun weeks ago. The service began with gentle hymns, the organ filling the church with soft, uplifting music. Father Michael's voice echoed through the hall as he spoke about faith, community, and the power of noticing what often goes unseen. His eyes occasionally met those of the parishioners, and he could see their attention, their curiosity, and their growing understanding of the messages the cross had brought to light. Rex, sitting alert at the front, occasionally tilted his head toward the cross, as if confirming that all was proceeding as it should. Officer Daniels watched quietly, respecting the sacred atmosphere. He had seen many extraordinary moments with Rex, but he knew this one held the weight of history, devotion, and community pride. As Father Michael knelt before the altar to bless the congregation, he felt a familiar sense of anticipation. He glanced down at the cross in his hands. It had guided him, revealed hidden truths, and brought the town together. He realized that it was more than a symbol of faith. It was a key to understanding, compassion, and unity. He whispered a quiet prayer of thanks not only for his mentor but for Rex, who had guided him when human senses alone could not have discovered the hidden messages. After the blessing, Father Michael decided it was time to reveal the final note in the cross. The congregation watched quietly, curiosity rippling through the pews. He opened the tiny compartment again, his fingers careful and deliberate. Inside was the oldest piece of paper yet, worn with age and delicate from decades of careful preservation. He unrolled it gently, revealing a final message from his mentor. The words were simple yet profound. They spoke of the importance of community, of supporting one another, and of acknowledging the quiet deeds of others. They emphasized that true strength was not in recognition or fame, but in kindness, courage, and humility. The note encouraged Father Michael to continue guiding his parishioners with patience, to celebrate the unseen heroes among them, and to remember that even a loyal dog could reveal truths that humans might overlook. As he read the message aloud, the church was silent. Every person in the congregation leaned forward slightly, absorbing each word. Children listened with wide eyes, imagining the secret notes hidden in the cross. Adults reflected on their neighbors, their families, and the countless small acts of kindness that often went unnoticed. For a few moments, no one spoke. The silence was full of understanding, reverence, and appreciation for the story that had unfolded. Rex nudged the cross gently, almost as if to signal the priest to continue sharing the lessons. Father Michael smiled and nodded at the dog. He realized that the cross, the notes, and Rex's guidance had become a bridge between the past and the present, connecting generations, teaching lessons, and inspiring change. When the service ended, the congregation lingered longer than usual. People spoke softly among themselves, sharing thoughts, memories, and reflections inspired by the cross and the dog. Some shared personal stories of quiet courage and kindness they had witnessed. Others expressed gratitude to Father Michael for preserving and revealing the hidden wisdom. Even Officer Daniels and Rex were acknowledged for their unexpected yet invaluable contribution to the community. The children were especially fascinated. They gathered around Rex, asking questions about how he had known to focus on the cross. "Did Rex really know something we didn't?" one little girl asked, her eyes wide with wonder. Officer Daniels smiled. "Rex has a very special talent. He notices things that humans might miss. Today he helped everyone here understand something important, that even the smallest details can reveal the greatest truths." Father Michael knelt and gently patted Rex on the head. "You have been a teacher in your own way, Rex," he said. "Your loyalty and instincts have guided us all." Rex wagged his tail softly, calm and proud. The town of Willow Creek began to change in subtle ways. People were more attentive to each other, more willing to offer help without seeking recognition, and more willing to acknowledge the quiet courage and kindness of those around them. The story of the cross, the notes, and the dog became a symbol of hope, unity, and the power of observing what often goes unnoticed. Father Michael took his role seriously, but with renewed energy. Each week he incorporated lessons from the notes into his sermons, highlighting the value of small deeds, courage, and faith. He encouraged parishioners to notice acts of kindness, to help one another, and to recognize the heroes among them, whether they were family members, neighbors, or friends. Rex continued to accompany Officer Daniels, but every Sunday he returned to St. Peter's Church. He was always alert, always focused, a reminder of the guidance and wisdom he had revealed. People admired him, not only as a police dog but as a guardian and a messenger of lessons too important to be ignored. The cross, now resting around Father Michael's neck once more, felt heavier not in weight but in responsibility. It carried the legacy of the mentor, the messages hidden for decades, and the story of a loyal dog who had taught an entire town to see beyond the ordinary. Father Michael often looked at the cross and whispered a quiet prayer of gratitude, knowing that faith and wisdom could appear in the most unexpected ways. One evening, after the last parishioners had left and the church was quiet, Father Michael knelt at the altar with Rex at his side. The warm light of the setting sun painted the stained glass windows in brilliant shades of red, yellow, and blue. He held the cross carefully in his hands, reflecting on the journey they had taken together. Rex rested his head on his paws, calm and watchful, as if sensing the priest's thoughts. Father Michael whispered softly, "Thank you for guiding us, for teaching us, and for reminding us that even in the quietest moments, great truths can be revealed." Rex let out a soft bark in reply, a sound of affirmation and companionship. Officer Daniels, standing in the doorway, watched the two silently, feeling proud and grateful for the bond between the priest and his faithful dog. The story of Willow Creek, St. Peter's Church, the cross, and the loyal police dog spread quietly beyond the town. Visitors came not only for worship but to hear about the extraordinary story of discovery, loyalty, and the power of noticing what is often overlooked. People left inspired to observe their own lives more closely, to recognize the quiet heroes around them, and to embrace the lessons of kindness, courage, and faith in action. In the days that followed, the town's sense of community grew stronger. People began helping neighbors more openly, expressing appreciation for the unseen efforts of others, and sharing stories of courage and kindness. Father Michael continued his mission with renewed vigor, and Rex remained by his side as a loyal companion, teacher, and guardian. The cross, resting on Father Michael's chest, became a symbol of more than faith. It represented guidance, history, and the extraordinary power of observing, understanding, and trusting. The mentor's words, hidden for decades, had finally reached the right hands, inspiring not only the priest but an entire town. As Willow Creek settled into quiet evenings, with families gathering in their homes and the streets peaceful once again, Father Michael, Rex, and Officer Daniel stood together in the church one last time for the evening prayer. The bond between man and dog, faith and community, had created a story that would be remembered for generations. It was a story of discovery, loyalty, courage, and the quiet acts that shape a life in a town. In the heart of St. Peter's Church, with the cross held gently and the dog resting faithfully at his side, Father Michael felt a sense of completion and hope. The lessons had been learned, the truth revealed, and the community transformed. And all of it had begun because a loyal police dog had refused to ignore what truly mattered.